And we are rolling with JayDreamerZ. Thanks for coming back again.
You're welcome. It's good to be
Hi.
here.
I'm excited. I was just asking you about your recent trip to Dallas. What were you doing there? Share with everybody what you were doing and tell them about all your book sales and how there's still more to buy.
So I was invited to be a vendor down at TrutherCon 2025 in Dallas, and there's a lot of speakers there talking about their truths and their most compelling evidence for those things. And I was too late to actually sign up and get on the speaker list, but they let me be a vendor and gave me a VIP pass and sell all my books and stuff. So I set up a table and you know um, got a lot of attention from just random people that were coming over and asking about what I do and what I talk about and my area of expertise. I was able to get on a panel that was sort of a Q&A for all of the guests that came, or like, VIPs or whoever. So that was cool. I was able to answer a few questions that they were asking to all the different people. It was hard for me not to grab the microphone every time,
I love it. I think it's really hard for especially people like you. I'm used to interviewing more. I've only done a couple just solo, but when you're used to carrying it and carrying not just the conversation but the energy and it's a lot. And so you get used to it and next thing you know you're like taking all the airtime from everyone. I'm not saying you do
Yeah.
that, but I could see where somebody would. Tell everybody about your books and where to find them. We'll do this in the beginning and at the end.
Yeah. So my book series is called Ancient Oblivion. The first book is called The Plasma Apocalypse. And that whole book is the Cliffs Notes on the major events of this cyclical apocalypse that happens to this world that resets civilization and rearranges the earth itself. And the chapters are each very short, very straight to the point, very direct. No fluff, no any of that stuff. I just get right to the point of what people can expect before, during, and afterwards. I cover everything from omens to mechanics to science fiction and pop culture references, to the post-apocalyptic world and things of that nature. And the second book is Ancient Oblivion, Return to Hyperborea. And that's really more focused on the creation event. I mean, the plasma apocalypse is a destructive event, but it's also the creation event.
Right.
So the first book focuses more on its destructive aspect and, the bad news of the apocalypse coming. The second book is more the creation aspect and the good news. And the first civilizations, the first cities that sprout, and specifically focuses on the Garden of Eden and the land at the North Pole. And it goes by many, many different names. But to me, that's the crux of the world that we live on. That's the heart of the world. And that's the cradle of civilization.
Which is what I wanted you to be here for today because I was seeing all over Twitter or X that there was this book called The Adam and Eve Story. Had you heard of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, I had never heard of it before, so it was kind of new to me. I guess that somebody was a guest on some major podcast and it's kind of brought it back around again. But it fascinated me because the reason it was taken off and kind of sanitized was because they felt that it affected national security because like you said, your book has like no holds bar, and it's kind of terrifying, right? But
yeah.
let's break it into small bite-sized pieces if you wouldn't mind. First though, I'd like to ask you, because you did mention that the Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, whatever. What's your opinion on, is the story of Adam and Eve an actual story in your mind? And I know we could have differing, opinions, and I love that. Or do you think it's an encoded story and something that's repetitive and it changes depending on who is telling the story?
What do I think about Adam and Eve?
Yeah. Do you think it's like an encoded story or do you think it's an actual thing that happened?
Like there was an actual guy named Adam and an actual chick named Eve?
Yes.
No, I don't think that.
Okay. And so you're more of the belief, like the sine wave, like the sign, and the like the actual cause of sin is it's the sin wave instead of no. Okay, so what are your thoughts on Adam and Eve then?
So for me, Adam and Eve represent um, what people have seen in the ancient past in the far north, in the Garden of Eden. So what I teach people is that in the Garden of Eden, at the very center, there is a holy mountain, and it's gone by many different names. That mountain is hollow on the inside and an entrance down into the inner earth, or Tartarus, or Sheol, or however you want to call it, in the underworld, the hollow earth, right? And this is like one of the cruxes of why this is so important, to why I call it the plasma apocalypse. Okay, there's two types of plasmas that appear during this cycle. There are plasmas from above, or from space, if people want to look at it like that, and there are geoplasmas. There are inner earth gases that ionize, they become activated and electrical, and they turn into plasma, right? So that plasma rushes up and it erupts out of all of the crevices and cracks and caves and openings on the surface, and it shoots high up into the sky as pillars and beams and columns. And it can shapeshift and it can move about, but it will stay in the same place, those geoplasmas, because it can't leave its place of origin, which is the opening. So it can shoot up in a straight line, which leads to the oldest form of worship of the oldest symbol, which is just a straight line. It's a beam. People would interpret that as birds of creation as it spreads out, as it gets higher into the atmosphere, or different tools like hammers or swords, or the cruciform and things of that nature. But Adam and Eve represent, to me, other what I call plasma volcanoes that flank the central one. So you have one in the exact middle, and that one is the life-giving tree of life. That's the axis mundi. It's the largest opening, and it gives rise to the largest pillar of light that can be seen from nearly every place on Earth, because it goes so high up into the sky. On its left and on its right, we have a positive version of that, smaller, and a negative version of that, also smaller. I call those the anode and cathode islands. But basically, they're also plasma volcanoes. And there's many plasma volcanoes around the world. Pretty much every volcano has the potential to be a plasma volcano.
Sure.
But these are the largest ones. The one in the center is the largest. The ones flanking outside of that are going to be second and third largest. And then as you get further and further south, it'll diminish in size. So Adam and Eve, to me, represent the anode and the cathode at the North Pole, which act as the two witnesses.
Electromagnetic, like one's going out, one's going in, or just that there has to be a positive and a negative?
I'm not sure what you're asking me, but one of them is like the positive side of a battery, and one's the negative side of the battery, just simply put.
Yeah. All right. So when you first started learning about this, when you were trying to capture it, were you of the belief that the world was flat or round when you were first starting out?
I think I first started out the way that most people in the United States start out, which is going through the academic system,
right,
and being taught that the Earth is a globe. So I learned all of that, mastered all of their trivia, and then I moved on. Cosmologically speaking, I started to study the hollow Earth theory. So I was very interested in what's happening in the Earth. And then I stumbled onto plasma physics and different alternative fringe theories about plasma, especially cosmic plasma and events that people may have seen in the sky. I was probably about 14 years ago, I guess.
You were young.
Thanks.
I mean, pretty young for thinking about stuff. A lot of people are out drinking and partying.
Yeah. So yeah, I was studying that, and I don't know, I just kept on pushing the envelope, which is to ask, what are the implications of this? If I suppose that this new information is true, how does that domino tip over, the other dominoes? Which domino would come next? How would that affect the next thing in the cycle? You know what I mean? How does that change other things, and how do those things change other things? So that was sort of my rabbit hole that I went down.
Do you think that people can't handle this truth? Or do you think the government was wrong? Or do you think they were wise to wait a while and release it? Because I think it came out in 1966. How appropriate.
I think that we live during evil times. I don't know how else to say that. And I think most people are stupid. So that being so, yes, I think most people cannot handle the truth, in any form, because lies are commonplace in this world. And I feel like we're at a point where lies are truth to the majority of the people. And so they see good as evil and evil as good. So they can't handle the truth in the similar fashion as I can't tolerate or bear witness to lies,
Yeah.
which is one of the commandments.
I'm with you, and I tend to believe that people are stronger than we give them credit for, or that they will adapt faster, rather than holding up the delusion. But then I see on a regular basis, even with some of my clients, people being in such great denial. It's very hard to help them, not necessarily because of their lies to themselves or delusions or illusions, but the people around them. And so it is kind of interesting how powerful it is. It's crazy. So going back to the earth being round or flat, at what point did you change, or do you have a flat earth concept or plane of inertia, or how do you look at it right now?
I studied the flat earth theory when I first heard about it, and I liked it, and I thought there was a lot of good points that made sense. My cosmological view has evolved leaps and bounds beyond the flat earth typical cosmology that most people talk about. I feel like most flat earthers that I encounter personally, which is a limited number, they're kind of stuck on like this disc earth, just flat. They don't get high up into the sky. They don't get down into the underworld. There's definitely no mention. There's rarely a mention of the dome and there being an actual separator between us and whatever lies beyond. So I call my view, and this, I might actually make this one of my future books that I write about, but I call my great grand view of all of the cosmos or reality, I call that the fractal verse, because to me it is fractal, it's holographic, it's repeating and looping, and it exists within what I refer to as the mind of God.
Yeah. Do you think it's always happening? Like at every moment it's kind of building itself?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah. It's all right. So going back to it, would you say it's the dome, but you also believe that there's, the hollow earth, and so you believe in some sort of toroidal field spatially? Or is it something you haven't put in a box? It's just basically what, as long as it allows for the things that you have, you don't have to have that figured out.
Are you talking about the dome?
Yeah, I'm talking about like when you imagine it in your mind, what does it look like? The whole earth.
Like just the earth that we live on?
Yeah. Just our earth.
It looks like the tip of a neuron.
Tip of a neuron. Okay.
Yeah.
And so then when you are talking about a pole shift, the reason I was asking all this is I was trying to get to the pole shift. So when I grew up, there was the globe, and I remember people saying, oh, there could be a pole shift sometime, and there'll be 30% shift. And, you kind of imagine it just moving, 30%. And then in this book, the Adam and Eve story, he's saying it's a 90% also on a globe. How does yours work as far as the percentage, or is it a percentage? Is it a spatial switch? What is it pole shift look like in your mind's eye?
I don't believe in partial pole shifts. Like the pole's going to flip 180 degrees.
Okay, 180. So right now it's cold in the North Pole or the Antarctic. Where will the cold go to next in your mind as far as the world as we know it?
Where will the cold go?
Yeah, so it'll be cold, and then like does the equator like tropical change, or does that stay the same and it shifts because it's shifting completely? It's still the equator.
In the time to come, if I'm correct about my theory, most of the world will be tropical. And it
Oh,
will be
okay.
hot and it will be warm. It will be an eternal summer. It'll be colder as you travel further north or further south, just as it always is. But the oceans will be gone. Those will be deserts. The continents will become, the high places, the mountainous places, and there'll be more jungle and everything will be overgrown. But yeah, like there's gonna be a lot of heat. There's gonna be a lot of because of I believe that the atmosphere depressurizes, and there in addition to that, it's going to create mist. There'll be a vapor canopy. There'll be vapor and mist all over the place, the world across, just as it says in the book of Genesis. Happened back then, and there's going to be a lot of energy in our atmosphere in the form of geoplasmas erupting from the earth itself. And all that energy mixed with all the cosmic energy that comes in will give rise to radioactivity. And that's going to make it a pretty warm place to be. So I don't see the need for all the, hoodies and jackets and stuff we have today.
We dropped 35 degrees in Dallas yesterday. It was crazy. Between last night and this morning. So, for instance, you had mentioned that you became very interested in plasma and you started studying plasma and looking at the anomalies that you would hear about. What are some of the more interesting ones that you know about? And like, are you talking about the stuff that people see on like their Ring cameras? Have you ever seen some of the stuff that people have on their night? Yeah. Is it that kind of stuff?
I'm not sure what you're asking me.
So when you said that where you were first studying and kind of shifting, that plasma really attracted you.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, when you were studying it, what were some of the cooler stories that you saw that really convicted you that plasma was real and that you had more to dive into?
I mean, I've known about plasma since I was young. I've never been a question like it's a mystery or anything to me personally. I know plasma is real. Like it's pretty established, I think. But it takes different forms, So for example, the ghosts or the balls or whatever you see on people's Ring cameras, quite often they'll see something on the camera on the closed circuit television, and then they go out to where the camera's facing and they won't see anything. Right. The reason why the camera can see it and the people cannot is because the camera can see into a different light spectrum than we can. So the camera's picking up on ultraviolet or, other wavelengths of light that are still there. That plasma is electromagnetic and it emits light, just like, I don't have a remote control, but like if you have a TV remote and you change a channel, there's a little light at the end of it. But if you look at it and press the button, you can't see that light come on. But if I put it onto this live stream right now and I press the button, you'll see the light.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it was interesting because my sister had that exact thing happen where she saw, they literally looked like little fairies in her Ring camera. And we were trying to figure out, like, what is it? What could be that size? Was it a moth? All this stuff. And so we ended up waiting for it to come back. And we did the same thing where we went outside. It was flying around and flying around and flying around. And then when we went out, there was absolutely nothing there. And so I was just curious if you had seen some that maybe, us regular people hadn't really seen because you've been studying it so much longer.
Yeah, I've seen thousands of examples, not personally.
Right.
Personally, I've probably seen like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But those flashes and flickers of light are an actual accepted phenomenon within the academic community,
Mhm.
known as transient luminous event. And it's a part of our atmosphere. So most people are familiar with, lightning. That's pretty much it when it comes to plasma. Some people might know about sprites, which occur higher up, above storm clouds and stuff like that. There's also other forms. Some are known as blue jets. But the little flickering, flashing balls of light and stuff, those are actually known as fairies.
Well, this is I'm promising you, like, it didn't look exactly like what a fairy would look like in, like, my little kid brain, like Tinkerbell, but very close, just the wings and this little body. It was it was fascinating, and we literally couldn't see it anywhere else. So I was I've also seen there's somebody else that was saying that they could see like this really funky, like it looks like spider webs, but they're lights. Have you ever seen any of those?
I have. I've seen lots of interesting, strange, and weird things that people point out on their cameras. I'm not too convinced by most of them though. Like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I mean, because I see too many people going off into La La Land saying
Lying.
like, "Oh, the spirits are talking to me," and it's like dust in the air.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I take it with a grain of salt. Like, it it just depends on what it's doing and how it looks and stuff like that.
Yeah. It is interesting though, because I've had a lot of different experiences. Like I remember laying out and just looking at the clouds one time because they were just flying by. And like if you stare at something long enough, it kind of changes. And it makes me wonder if that's not plasma that does that, or if that's not some other, what did you call it, a factoverse? Something like that that's causing that. I also have seen, like, every once in a while, if I'll catch something really bright in the daytime, it's like you can see all of the things moving. Have you ever seen that? No?
I don't know what you're
Okay.
talking about.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. And so you think it's a 180 shift, and you think that the safest place to be will be on a mountain?
No, no, I don't. I don't think there's really a safest place to be. There's safer places to be. Um, Ultimately, being a, some examples are like being, like they mention this in the book. It says that on the lee side of Pikes Peak, which is the eastern slope
Yeah.
of Pikes Peak, is a safer place due to the supersonic winds that rush across the world. Those winds rush in the same direction as the jet stream, which is why they're going in that direction, because it's a fluid up there and it's all going to spin in the direction it's already spinning in. So the winds move from west coast to east coast, wherever you are in the world. And obviously there'll be anomalies where it might actually go in different directions. It's going to cause tornadoes all over the place, hurricanes, all this stuff. It'll be a worldwide low pressure system and a tempest the world across. But obviously if you're tucked away at the bottom of like a huge cliff or mountain or something that's not going anywhere, which there's exceptions to that too, because the mountains, the all of the high places, all the mountains and hills and everything will not be as tall as they are now after this event.
Sure.
Right? There still might be some remnants, and there might be enough of a mountain or whatever. It might be solid enough rock that it will protect some people from the winds, but there's lots of other dangers. So that's why I say there's safer places. You know what I mean?
And
Like
it's going to be a
safer
crapshoot,
preparations.
basically, in your opinion?
What's that?
I mean, do you basically think it's going to be a crapshoot? Like, there's no way to really figure out like where would be the safest place, how you could be safe, other than to, just be good at prayer.
I mean, I think luck plays a huge part in this particular event, but I think wisdom does too. So a person can be wise and they can be purposefully in the right place at the right time, or in a better place at the wrong time. But they can just be completely lucky too, which in its own right is a superpower in that case. But I don't think it's a complete crapshoot. That's why I think that our religions across history and across time have discussed the omens and the sequence of events. You know what I mean? Like, for example, I know that the atmosphere is going to depressurize, which means if we look at the implications and ask what other areas of life is that going to touch, breathing is one of the areas of life that's going to touch. It's going to be very difficult to breathe in a gigantic vacuum as the air is getting sucked up into the sky. So, you know, a wise person that invests in like a bottle of oxygen or something, you know, to help them breathe, is not really lucky. They're just using intelligence to help themselves out. You know, it doesn't guarantee they're going to survive. You could have a giant tree just come flying through and take their head off.
Right.
Like,
No,
so
that's so true.
luck
Like,
plays its part, you know?
yeah, you see people in like videos of tsunamis and stuff, and how certain ones, you know, are thrown into a tree and saved, and another one just tossed out. It's so crazy. Cataclysms are frightening. When you, so I'm glad that you read the book. So in the book, he's talking about, like, it was interesting too, because everything else that I've read always says it's a certain amount of years, like 6,000 to 7,000 years. But in his, he had this, like, there was one that was 19,000 years ago, and then it was 7,000 years, and then it was 4,000 years. Do you feel like it's getting closer and closer together? Or do you even have any running philosophy on it?
As far as like like how the
Often
intervals,
they were going to happen, the pole shifts or the
um, no, I don't actually. I think that I can see why people might think that, but I believe that our timekeeping methods, being the luminaries in the sky, speed up and slow down every other cycle. So these people are all off, in my opinion, in every single one of their chronological calculations. They do not take into consideration the quickening of days that was spoken of by Daniel and Jesus, and many other people too, and many other religions. Nor do they consider the eternal summer and the lengthening of days and the lengthening of time and stuff. So I could see how they could come up with, you know, their intervals and stuff, but that's based on constant adjustments to calendrical systems and clocks and stuff like that. I think they're all way off.
Yeah, it's interesting because as I was thinking about interviewing, I thought, gosh, really what Jay's done is put together the most impossible puzzle. Like, you've pulled from so many different modalities in order to create this philosophy.
That's kind. Thank you.
Don't you think of it that way? Like, I don't know. I can't stand 1,000-piece puzzles. And so I was thinking about puzzles, and I was like, I guess because in the book they were talking about it took knowing science, knowing mathematics, understanding archaeology, understanding, you know, certain types of weather trends. And if one person only had one thing, they wouldn't really be able to put this together. And that it took somebody. Now that guy, people say, was a psychic. Did you get that vibe from him at all in the Adam and Eve story? Do you think that he relied on his psychic abilities to know these things? He didn't also, I was going to ask you what you thought of the book, because he also didn't really cite anything.
I don't care about that. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a big citation kind of guy. I don't care at all. As a matter of fact, I think it's ridiculous whenever people are like, what's your source? Where'd you get that from? Like, man, it can come from nothing. It's true or it's not true. You know what I mean? And not only that, but if my source is Einstein, he had a source too. And then whoever he's quoting and referencing, they had a source. And it's like,
and then
that's a waste of time for me to go all the way back to like do people's genealogies just to get to my point. No, forget that. Like, it makes sense to a person or it doesn't make sense to a person. You know what I mean? So I don't fault him for that, because I've watched a lot of videos on this particular topic where people are like, this guy doesn't give any of his citations, doesn't give any sources for his material. Where is he getting it from? Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, is it plausible? You know, is it rational? Does it make sense? No. Then fine. You know, come back to it another time.
Well, there's a lot of people that don't have agency yet. They don't trust themselves, so they have a hard time functioning in a world that, you know, I mean, just look at
It's the
What we
system. It's the
yeah,
system we grew up in,
yeah,
where you have to be approved by the Wizard of Oz for every little action and thought.
I love that.
You
Yeah,
know,
it
everyone
is.
needs their diploma and their degrees and papers and signatures and medals and whatever. That's fine. They can have it.
So, if you don't mind sharing, and I don't mind if you don't want to, what were most of your sources? Like when I think about the puzzle, where were you pulling from the most? If you want to share that.
Um, I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you rephrase it?
So earlier when I was saying what you have put together is somebody that it's as if you came from a lot of different modalities. So that just
Yeah.
tells me that you had to study a lot of different
Right.
things in order to
Yes.
get there. Where were your places that you went to or that you enjoyed learning from?
It's a good question. I get asked that question a lot, actually. It depends on which aspect, because the plasma apocalypse in general touches every single fringe theory, conspiracy theory, creation, destruction event, cataclysmic event, religion. You know what I mean? Like it reaches it reaches its tentacles all the way into the future and prophecy and loops back in on itself. You know what I mean? It's literally everything in our world and all of reality and all of our social norms, all of who we are and where we came from. It's the defining event that creates everything in this world and dictates how it goes. So it's really my life's work, you know. It's really all of my experiences, from looking into gigantism and reading Genesis 6 and learning about the giants and asking how did they get so giant, and really asking a lot of the questions for the anomalies in, you know, all throughout history, to zombies, zombification, the zombie apocalypse, the dead being reanimated, the dead rising at Jesus' crucifixion, and monsters and otherworldly creatures that come in, and aliens, interterrestrials and extraterrestrials, and technology and technology out of control and limitations to technology. Like I'm getting, to me, it's all of those subjects are connected.
Yes.
Every single, they're not separate. They are all interconnected and a part of this never ending story. You know what I mean? And the plasma stuff, you know, I really like eschatology. That's the study of the end of things, or the end of the world
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
And that's always been interesting to me. So like, I've always found particular interest in the creation events and the destruction events in all the world's religions and belief systems.
Mhm.
And what really kind of locked it in for me to bring it all back was going back to a more ancient cosmological view of our world, and then incorporating that with modern science and the scientific method, I should say, and plasma physics. And the thing that got the plasma in my head was probably watching a documentary. Well, a few books, you know, there's a few different books and stuff, but this documentary that was made, really, I couldn't shake it. I couldn't get it out of my head. And it was called Symbols of an Alien Sky, done by a group called the Thunderbolts Project. And they proposed that the petroglyphs around the world that are showing these strange and otherworldly figures and stuff were actually not a bunch of shamans the world across that were high on peyote or whatever, but they were actually people drawing and carving out images that they saw in the sky during a cataclysmic event. And those images were made from ionized gases and plasmas and electricity in the sky that was, you know, causing all these different shapes and stuff. The people that made that video, they proposed that the plasmas and electricity, the thunderbolts of the god, came down towards the earth from space or a planet or whatever. And I believe that's probably because the association with lightning, and lightning travels downward usually, or that's how we imagine it. But I knew that it didn't look right. It looked like it was the inverse. It looked to me like the energy was coming from the earth and going upwards. So I started to pursue that as to how that could be possible. And that took me into the whole plasma apocalypse, the cycle between the earth and the cosmos, or the mother and the father above, or whatever, and their interactions with each other.
That's so interesting. And so when you looked at lightning, you would look at it different than most people, right? Because most people see it coming from above, coming down and hitting, but you felt like it was hitting a certain place because it was electrified.
No, not really. Like, I
Okay.
see lightning just how most other people see lightning.
Okay. So how did you think of that?
So I'm not really talking about lightning. I'm more talking about.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not.
You were just giving
I'm
an
only
example
using.
of
Yeah, because that's what
electricity.
most people are familiar with.
Got
What
it.
I'm talking about is on a scale thousands of times, maybe millions of times larger than lightning. Like, this is cosmic lightning that comes down from beyond the firmament and blows holes in the earth that we call impact craters. Like, that's the kind of lightning I'm
That
talking
makes
about.
so much more sense to me too than a crater, like being hit by something. Because the lightning would take it away, whereas a crater, it would hit and like, wouldn't it bounce somewhere? I've always thought it was weird that just a crater hole and there's no rock or
Yeah.
anything there. I've always thought that was really strange. It's funny how there's so many things that come around and they make more sense later. And so did some of it, I know some of it, like you're saying, is science, and some of it is like just your natural curiosity. And then what about, like, did you ever get into like the Tartaria type stuff or the mud floods or any of that?
Mm-hmm.
And that led you there too?
Yeah, it's all part
A
of
little
it.
bit.
It's a part of it. So I mean, they're all related, you know what I mean, but they're totally different topics. So the Tartarian Empire, as I write about that in my new book, or in my second book. Excuse me. The Tartarians, they come from the Garden of Eden. They come from the center of the world, from Hyperborea. They're one of a handful of tribes that live in paradise, and then they evacuate because paradise disappears every other cycle. When the world floods, that's when paradise disappears, but it makes a reappearance. So these tribes, 12 or 13 tribes, they disperse from this circular island at the North Pole. And when they disperse, the first places that we see them settling are all around the northern hemisphere, and there's evidence of that, and they go by many different names. And they were seen as babblers, they were seen as strange ones, they were seen as giant and tall, and a mixed community, racially speaking. Unfortunately, modern academics has turned that into just the Mongols of China, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I don't buy any of that stuff at all.
So you
But
think
yeah,
it
there's
was
these.
more fantastical, like less of like common man and more like different types of beings or creatures?
They're humans. I don't know.
Okay.
Really.
This just different kinds of humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they're the elven race. Like, they're the El. They're the mighty ones. So the people that live, the closer a person lives to a power source on Earth, the better the effect that power source is going to have on those people, especially how long they live for. So the people who live protected in the Garden of Eden at the North Pole, all kinds of benefits to that. One of those benefits is a very long lifespan. Okay, so the electricity affects their body and their cells and stuff to cause them to regenerate. So they pretty much don't die unless they're killed, or just will themselves to die, as some belief systems go. So they've lived to be hundreds and hundreds of years old. So whenever they leave paradise and they go out into the Southlands, where people live much shorter lifespans, they also take with them an incredibly exhaustive reference book in their experiences alone. You know what I
Right.
mean? They're very intelligent.
Higher capacity for using their brains.
Yeah. And so they use their brains to take over the world, because, like, they don't need to out muscle everybody in the world. They just need to outthink them. And it's quite easy to do whenever you just, understand how energy works, and, your synapses are firing off. You're using 80-90% of your brain capacity, while all these Southlanders are using like 20 or 15 or something. Like, yeah, it's super easy to take control.
Do you think there's people living there now?
At the North Pole?
Mm-hmm.
So
That we don't know about?
I think that I do believe that land is still there, but I think that it's flooded. I think that the waters are covering that land. Now, it's possible that the land, although being underwater, is not flooded. It's possible that there's actually an energetic field,
Mm-hmm.
a magnetic field, which is really what it is, that is pushing the waters and keeping them in place like a bubble. So it's possible that Atlantis is underwater with a bubble of a force field literally around it. And the science behind that is just water is diamagnetic. So it's repelled by a very strong magnetic force. The strongest magnet in the world is the one that all of our compasses point towards.
Sure.
And it's at the North Pole. So if it's really that strong, then it has the power, and it's feasible that it's actually keeping the ocean waters out while the inhabitants still live there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
all they need to do is wait for the water levels to drop or something to cause the land to rise up once more, and Atlantis will return, and the Garden of Eden will return, and the story will start over.
Do you think Atlantis is a Garden of Eden type place?
It is, to me, the Garden of Eden. They're the
Oh, it
same
is the
thing.
same to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
The same exact place to me.
And so do you ever think, oh, it'd be so great to somehow get there?
Yeah. I plan on going if I live to see the apocalypse. The moment that I see that large blue beam of energy shoot up from what will then be the South Pole, because the poles will flip, I'm going to go straight there, because
You
like I
want to
said,
get all
there's
that
so
good
many
oxygen.
benefits. Not so much the oxygen. Like, we'll still have enough oxygen to breathe. It'll just be more difficult to breathe than it used to be. We'll have to become acclimated. But yeah, there's so many health benefits to living in the Garden of Eden, so close to these naturally occurring energies that are like, there's the plasma that erupts up from Mount Meru, or Rupus Nigra, this holy mountain. It's beneficial in every single way possible to the human body. So it will literally, through resonance, help us to use all of our brain capacity and no longer be like dead batteries. It is antimicrobial, antifungal, probably antiviral, I guess you could say.
Well, I would
It's
imagine it would be so pure that it wouldn't be toxic, which is really what all sickness is, right? We've been poisoned at some level.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's known as a cold plasma in the medical industry today, and they already know about this particular type of energy, and they're already using it for healing purposes, to anti-age, anti-wrinkle, and get rid of blemishes and spots and stuff like that. But they're using it on such a small scale. It's comparatively, it's ineffective.
Right.
Like, people at the North Pole are, and not this isn't just at the North Pole. So there's many of these little fountains of youth that pop up all around the world. This one's just the largest one. It's enough to provide for an entire nation. You know what I mean? Like, as opposed to just locally or whatever.
So, like, do you believe that Lourdes is a possible place where that is happening?
Where?
Lourdes, it's kind of known for, it's in France. It's kind of known for Mary Magdalene, and there's it's a spring, and people go there to get whatever bubbly water comes up. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's supposed to heal people, like Miracle heals.
Right. Personally, I don't believe in like healing waters or any of that type of stuff, but there is truth to where that comes from. There's substance to the origin of those things. There's healing waters and healing baths and springs and stuff like that the world across, and many of them are, they have a story and a backstory that they were healing waters at some point or something. Even like the famous cowboy Doc Holliday, like, he here in America was known for like having TB, and so he went up here to Colorado to where there were known to be these healing springs or whatever.
I didn't know that's
Anyways,
why he came, but you're right. That he actually died in Glenwood.
yeah, Glenwood Springs.
Driven past it a million times. I used to live up there. And so you don't necessarily, you wouldn't go, oh, you know, my I'm sick, I'm going to go to Lourdes or, you know, the Colorado Springs, but you do think there's something to the healthier water as far as that.
Yes, but it's not the water that's just healthy all by itself, and it's definitely not the minerals. What it is it's the energy that once rose up through those cavernous systems. That water comes from the same cavernous systems as the plasma. So in the places where the tunnel's being blocked by water, because it has those minerals and those metals, they act as electrolytes, which allow the plasma to actually flow through the water instead of being blocked by the water. So the plasma, these healing energies from the earth itself, these geoplasmas, they go through the water, they invigorate it. And what I mean by that specifically is the metals that exist inside of the water, the minerals and stuff, the crystals, they absorb the energy. So that's where we get magic rocks and all this stuff from, right? Like even back to the times of Atlantis, they had a magic rock known as orichalcum, and this is exactly what it is. This is what I'm saying. This is all my opinion and stuff, but I'm going to speak as a matter of fact because I'm pretty damn sure of it. But these certain elements, especially metals and crystals, they absorb energy. And so whenever you have this life-giving healing energy that's rushing up through the earth, these metals absorb it. The metals in the water, no matter how small they are, they absorb it, they keep it. And so biblically speaking, like they would call these the healing pools. Right. And they would tell people like, wait for the angel to go stir up the water. Right. It's not an angel with a spoon, like a Keebler elf mixing fudge or anything. It's freaking energy that is rushing through the water itself. And in other places, I found legends and stuff where women would get pregnant by such means. Like they'd get pregnant by the wind or by the waters, by the healing waters or whatever. That's how life-giving these things are, you know. So they eradicate disease.
Well, people used to give birth, like they used to go to the ocean and give birth and like try to have dolphins with them or whatever. And now I think it's illegal to do that, at least in the United States. I don't know about everywhere. But I like to think of angels as angles of light, which are just information and a source of substance. And always, in my opinion, good, but everybody gets to have their own. I think that your open-mindedness is unbelievable. But I also like that you're very polite to people who have their own beliefs. Like you're not out there trying to, you know, get mad at people because they don't believe the way you are. You just kind of present it. Was it you that I'm pretty sure I was listening to you and you were talking about the oxygen and how it made people like almost superhuman, or I don't know if it was the oxygen and the plasma or something in a certain time period. And that it may have had something to do with why the Christians were put in with the gladiators because they couldn't kill them. Was that you that was talking about that, or did I hear that somewhere else?
That was me.
Okay. So can you explain that? I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, sure. So whenever we go through these cataclysmic shifts, like I said, like that whoever lives closest to these places of power, which are places where the earth releases an abundant amount of energy that's life-giving, those people develop, comparatively speaking, to those who don't live near those places, superpowers. Those people develop things like telepathy because all of their synapses are firing off. Their aura, their spirit, their electromagnetic spectrum is stronger and extends far further outside of the body than most other people's do. So this is seen a lot, especially within like the medieval times and the dark ages and stuff, where these people were hunted down. So after that shift was over and they were no longer in power, right, then the evil comes to charge. The evil comes to power or whatever, and they go around making sure to eradicate any of the opposition that could take them out, like people with superpowers or whatever. But after the apocalypse, people also get superpowers in other ways just simply by surviving. And I believe that the Bible also makes a reference to this. These are the gifts that are given to people who hold on and people who simply just survive. They inherit certain abilities. So, for example, right now, everyone that moves about, your average person on earth, we are all moving about under intense pressure that is built up over a long period of time. And when that pressure is released, that pressure makes everything dense. It makes everything weigh more. It makes everything heavier. So that's why people say, oh, this is heavy. Things are getting heavy or whatever. They literally are actually physically getting heavier and heavier and heavier as time moves forward. That being said, the implication is we're getting stronger and stronger and stronger. We just don't realize it because we're just, everything's changing at the same rate. But whenever you depressurize the atmosphere, things become less dense, things becomes less heavy, the buoyancy is increased. And now you have the exact same muscle structure as you did under all that pressure and weight and heaviness in a world that is much lighter. So you essentially have super strength.
That's so cool. So do you think the same thing happens with as we get closer and closer? Like he called it in the book the null. It would like be like everything was fine for a while, and then there would be this null where it was like this period before the pole shift where you could kind of tell it was going to happen because everybody could feel it. Do you think there's some sort of emotional or spiritual pressure also? Or do you just think that's like a physics type of pressure?
I think it resonates throughout all subject matter, that it's all interrelated. So if it's happening on one scale, it's happening on all of them in different ways. So, for example, as the pressure increases in our world, it makes it easier for electricity to pass through and messages to be passed. That's why it's so easy for us to have Wi-Fi and all this type of technology. And even airplanes. Like this is the reason why people didn't fly around in jets and devices that use propulsion, because whenever you have less pressure in the atmosphere, you can't have propulsion. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot different. So people had airships and they used balloons and other ways to fly around and stuff. But the same thing happens with telepathy, and the same thing happens with the energy and agitation, and the agitation that it causes as the energy starts to vibrate faster and faster and bounce off of things faster and faster. It causes agitation within living organisms, which we see the easiest within the insect world, because they seem to be affected by it pretty quickly. Grasshoppers, they get too close, they get too populated or whatever, they become agitated and they become locusts, and then become dangerous massively, collectively. I see that happening to humanity right now, and they're losing their minds. They're becoming locusts.
I also think as you were talking, it made me think about how some of the people are stronger mentally, and some people are stronger emotionally, and some people are stronger spiritually, and they seem to be the ones that are kind of leading the way. They can handle the truth. They can talk about these things without freaking out. They don't put their head in the sand. They are able to inspire people or tell the truth and face those people's questions. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's the opposite. That's the other side of it. So while all the building pressure in this world and the energy that is now at the last second suddenly flooding the world before the apocalypse comes, it has an effect on the evil people and their energy. It's amplifying their energetic fields, which makes them more evil. But it also does that to the minority, which is the good people in the world. Mm-hmm. So during these shifts, during these times, personally, I believe that there's always a remnant of one or the other. The time we live in right now, there is a remnant of good energy. That's the few, right? And that's why we feel so overwhelmed in the world today and so alone in the world today or whatever. And that's why we look forward to the time whenever the golden age returns and people are more like-minded the way that we are. In that time, the remnant will be evil. It'll be a remnant or a small pocket of evil in the world.
I think about how fun that would be. It has to be kind of like shocking, because like my whole life I've I've kind of watched people do things and I'm like, oh my God, I could never do that to that person. Like, how come they felt so comfortable doing that? I wonder though, if they're really stronger or just less, hiding it less. Like they just don't feel like they need to hide it as much, because it seems as though they've always been doing some of this stuff. But you actually think there's more of a presence of evil, period.
Yeah. I believe that we live during what the Bible calls Satan's little season. I think that this is the time whenever entropy is on high, that the energy of the earth is being charged, which means it's being taken away from the surface and it's being charged or pulled inward down towards the heart or the center or the hollow of the earth. And that during that time we lack energy. And to me, that's evil. Like a lack of energy is just death. You know what I mean? Like it's a death focused, death cult world. And people become consumers. They physically have to consume the energy of other living beings to continue their own lifespans, which is satanic in my opinion.
I agree.
I mean, I eat meat and all that stuff, but only because I pretty much am forced to in the system that we live in today. But when that system changes and I can talk to my animal friends once again and have casual conversations with them, I'm not going to eat them. I'm not going to, you know what I mean? Like energy is restored and amplified. So we won't have a need to sleep any longer. We won't have a hunger that has developed over time and this need to be vampires and sink our teeth into other living beings and stuff like that.
So did you read, I bet you did, Narnia?
I saw the movies. I didn't read the books.
Okay. So when you see that, don't you just kind of go, oh, that's the exact example? Because remember they like the White Queen is losing her power and Aslan's gaining.
Yeah, and it's prophetic. It's history. It's the world that we have forgotten about, and we have relegated it to fiction and lies and not true and stuff. But that's all true. It's just it's not the way the world is now, and we would give ourselves a huge disservice to project the present conditions of the world upon the ancient past or our future.
Yeah,
because it's always changing.
Because one of the things that when I first became a Christian, I was kind of bothered by the fact that Dionysus and Jesus had similar things, and this person and that person kind of matched from previous histories. I'm like, did they copy it? But after talking to you, I kind of feel like that it's the same thing. Like, I don't remember who it was in the book. Oh, so there's of course Noah, that prepared, but there's some god before. Was it some Egyptian god that they did a similar thing, and they had the like square boat or the rectangular boat, and they saved all the different people, and it makes you have a little bit of like grace for going, oh, well, maybe the reason everything sounded the same in the Bible as it did from like the gods from previous times was because the pole shift happened, and it is the same story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That's exactly what I think.
Oh, it is?
There's many, many multiple examples of a Noah type figure throughout almost every country in the world except for Japan. So like they all have stories of the flood. They all have stories of survivors and a container that saved people and animals and stuff like that. So I'm putting those stories together and I'm seeing what matches from culture to culture across time. And then I'm adding in a sprinkle of the scientific method and things that we know of today and the way that the world is and geology and cosmology and stuff like that, to reverse engineer those stories. I used to be the same way though. I was a Protestant Christian for a long time and very New Testament only, and thought I knew everything that there was to know. And
I'm not like that.
I needed to tell everybody.
I learn every day.
I also remember being, kind of offended whenever I had heard that there are all of these similar savior type figures to Jesus.
Weird. I was like,
going back before Jesus, and then
it made me think like, oh gosh, like these Christians are kind of cheesy. Like they really believe this, and then like, But it's funny too, though. I hadn't thought of it until I read the Adam and Eve story and was sitting here talking to you, and I kind of got it through osmosis. And I was like, maybe it is just because it happens all the time, or
Yeah. I
not
mean,
all the
what I
time.
was told by all the religious people is that the devil like knew the future like before Jesus, so he like made Jesus types or whatever and all these false gods, so that when the real Jesus shows up, it's confusing to everyone and no one knows who to follow or whatever. But
That's a
I'm
horrible.
not convinced by that. I'm convinced by cyclical appearances. Even Jesus makes cyclical appearances. They call them Christophanies in the Bible, which is where people saw a Jesus figure way before he was actually born or whatever in the New Testament, the whole story and stuff, you know?
Well, there's so much that could be explained by timelessness, like you were saying, like there's like Chronos slow and Chronos fast. And so, I mean, who knows, if you go outside of time space, then I guess everything would make sense at that point in time, because it's no longer being stretched out into, a chronological order of some sort. But do you have time for 2 more questions?
Yeah, I've got however much time you want.
Oh, you're so sweet. So the first one is, and I've thought about this a lot, whether you're a Christian or just somebody that is amazed by this world, you realize that there are things that look like they used to be huge, amazing buildings, and now they look like melted rocks or whatever. And so you kind of over time get this like, okay, something could happen. There could be an end times. There could be a pole shift. And I always think, how would I tell somebody? Like if you, I kind of get like sometimes they put stuff in the cave in a clay jar, and it's the Dead Sea Scrolls or whatever. But how would you do it? How would you try to put something out that would survive a cataclysm?
How would I preserve something from
Yeah.
the plasma apocalypse?
Yeah. And how would you warn them, or you know what I mean?
Well, those are 2 different questions, so let's do one at a time.
Okay.
So, one second, I gotta
That's
reject
okay.
that call. How would I preserve something from the plasma apocalypse? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is doing it the way that the ancients did it. So there are many writings that are sort of biblical or Christian or Hebrew in nature that discuss these events that are talked about from Genesis to Joshua, but they're just not popular. They were not included in the canonized version of the Bible. They're considered to be false writings or whatever. And in many of those, they discuss the cataclysm by water and the cataclysm by fire. And it was told to Seth and his children, and it was told for him to pass this information down and to preserve it for future generations. So what he was told was, because they didn't know which one was coming next at the time, according to the story. They didn't know if the world would be flooded next or if there would be the fire next. He was told to build a container of stone and a container of brick, and to fill both with the same information. That way, if the floodwaters came, the container of stone would preserve all of the information. If the fires came, then the brick would just be solidified, and that would preserve all of the information. And these are types for what I guess I would recommend to people that want to preserve anything. Mm-hmm. Is to use the things that are naturally preserved anyway on the earth.
Get covered up with mud.
What's that?
I said, and just pray it doesn't get covered up with mud or something.
Yeah, it probably will.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
I don't see it being very likely at all that anything will be purposefully preserved. However, there are government institutions that are obviously hollowing out mountains and digging down into bedrock and have deep underground cities and stuff. So it's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's improbable for me personally to save some, like my book or whatever. Like my book's going to be destroyed.
Right.
That book's gone. Like it'll be a miracle if anybody finds my book.
Are gone. All of the any of the digital information. It's
Yeah.
gone. And so
What was
that's
the
why I
other
was,
question though?
how would you warn people? So if you had the,
Oh,
how would you, like, okay, I want this information to get to the people so they don't have to wait
right.
1,000 years to fight
Right.
this male female, thing.
Yes.
Instead, I'm going to do whatever. How would you warn people? Here's my book and it's in this rock and open
I
here.
I find myself to be in a predicament when it comes to this particular question. It's a catch-22 for me.
Okay.
I don't want to warn people.
Yeah.
It seems contrary to what I do, which is by nature warning people and letting them know. Most of me doesn't even believe that other people believe the things I say or the things that I write about, even if they're interested in it. I think they just take it with a grain of salt and they don't really take it seriously. But on the other hand, I don't want most people. I support the apocalypse. I want it to happen. I can't wait. It's a cleansing event, and I don't want to just all the messed up, base, perverted, evil, disgusting human beings on this earth to just, oh, now I know how to survive. No, that defeats the whole purpose. You people need to go. You know what I mean?
Aren't
And
they the
who
ones
am
that
I
go
to
from the
judge who
bunkers?
those people are? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I put the information out there, just kind of trusting that it gets to the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I use a lot of sort of fictitious and pop culture references and cartoon images, as you can see, and stuff, because that's how Jesus spoke and that's how he taught, and that's how many of the wisest people across time shared the deepest and most important truths, was through allegory and metaphor and analogies and story form.
Stories.
So
Yeah.
that's how I try to come across, so that the people who are not listening and not paying attention don't get it. And I don't want them to get it. I don't want them to survive the coming shift. They will be done away with and the world will be reset. And on top of that, there's incentive to be good, actually, because it changes our energy, our electromagnetic spectrum that we call a spirit and a soul, that we're working on now and developing now.
So we're ahead.
And when those plasmas are dangerous. Those cosmic ones that come into this world, those
Yeah.
are dangerous. Those will electrocute people. Those will petrify people. Those will burn people. Those are bad. And when they come down to the ground, they will be attracted to or repelled by whatever frequency a
Any
person
open
themselves
circuit.
has.
Right. Crazy times. I just finished reading Virginia Giuffre's book, the Nobody's Girl, the Epstein survivor that had passed recently. And if that doesn't convince you that Jay is right, that there's a lot of evil here, I don't know what will. I mean, it was a crazy book. I do highly recommend people read it, though, that don't understand how dark things can get. But thank you so much for coming, and I love listening to you. I have so much respect for what you've done, because you're cutting out areas that nobody's really cut out before. And it's fun for you, but it's also fun for people like me that can go there. And like when I heard you say that about the Christians and the gladiators, I just thought, how cool is that? Because it made more sense to me. Because I was like, what's the, why are the Romans lining up to see some gladiator, just kill some Christian? Like, that doesn't make sense. But when you said that they had extra powers and that they had, that they were able to fight these guys without anything, I thought that was really, really cool. And so it is a lot of fun to I don't know, expand your mind. And thank you for helping me think of things and look at things in new ways. I do tend to stay more single focused on biblical truths, but your truths are very, very similar. You may word it different, but it seems very similar to me. And I think the most important thing is that you're just kind to people and you're just a good person. So thank you very much for all that you do, Jay. if you could tell everyone where to find you and your books. I did put it in the description, but we can do it again.
Sure. I have a website. It's JayDreamerZ.com. Boom. And I have a Patreon, patreon.com/JayDreamerZ, where people can, jump into the group chat that's always there and share information and upload pictures and see all my special little behind the scenes videos and stuff. And then, of course, my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/JayDreamerZ. And
well, you're on Instagram too, because you had something go viral.
True. Yeah. So I always forget about those other things because I don't get paid by those.
Oh, they don't pay you? Instagram doesn't pay?
I don't know how to make it happen. Like,
I didn't know.
I'm kind of technologically stupid.
Do it through sponsorships or what do they call them? Collaborations.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have enough time to research all that extra stuff and figure it out. I just use it for advertising.
So, but you had two kind of go viral. One was about the clock, and the other one was about the bells. Am I right? Clocks, bells.
Yeah, I think so. Those were over 1 million.
That's so cool.
Thanks. But yeah, I've got Instagram, TikTok, all the. I'm not like active. Like, I just upload stuff, and I don't go check on comments or none of that stuff. Like, YouTube is my main thing. Yeah, like I have my audience on YouTube. Like I engage with them. I talk to them there. I know everybody from there, and Patreon too. So people that jump onto my Patreon, like like I offer video consultations and stuff. Oftentimes people will want more time with me personally. And so they pay me to have a video conference where, I can do anything from look up their geography and where they are and give them the pros and cons as to what I see, being positive or negative based on their local geography during this event, to just random questions, to just hanging out and just getting to know each other. So some people I know more on a personal level.
Sure.
Through like my Patreon and stuff than I do like YouTube or whatever. But
also something that I love, for anyone that's not following Jay, he does. How often do you do omens? Like once a week?
Yeah, typically it's once a week.
I love that show. And it's always stuff that I'm like, where did he find that? Like I was in the news this week. I mean, I was in it. Like I was trying to find the good stuff, and you find the coolest stuff.
Thanks.
And I love how you break it down. I really do. I think it's really neat because you break it down in symbolism. You break it down in, Freemasonry, like all of the different ways that it could be broken down. And I think it's probably like my favorite show to go to that you have.
It's my favorite because I like to let loose and just kind of like, roast academics or be funny or, like, I feel like I'm more casual during my omens episode because, like, I know for a fact, like, I'm what I call an apocalyptimist. So, like, I don't care if other people think this is doom and gloom. I don't care. I'm excited every single time I see an omen, and I'm paying attention, and I'm making a list, and I know all the different omens that are going to happen and that are happening, and I can figure out or get a good beat on, what the next domino to touch is and where these came from. All the different shifts and why they're happening, not just pointing out that it's happening like a million people do on the internet. It's like, oh, this happened. Oh my God, this happened.
It from somebody else that.
Yeah, no, I'm a puzzle solver. I'm a freaking Riddler. Like I need to figure out the origin. I need to go to the beginning and then I need to see the end results. You know what I mean? And I need to figure that out. And also, if anybody else, like ever wants me to be a guest, they can just email me at JayDreamerZ.guest@gmail.com.
That's how I got him. He had posted something, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get it.
Well, I would love to start being a guest more, because
it helps. Even if you only get a few followers, they might tell someone, they might share it with somebody. You never know who that one is that's gonna like blow something up.
Yeah, well, it works for me in many different ways. One, it's therapeutic. Like I get to talk to another human being about something that like no one else on earth is really looking into. Right. And I get all that stuff off my chest. This is all stuff that's just up here waiting to come out. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever seen the movie Phenomenon?
Oh my God, I love that movie.
that's me. The part whenever he's like, can I do a book club? And I like, people can ask me questions and I can just share the information. Like, that's
Yeah.
how I feel, you know?
Yeah. No, I love it. I love having you on. I feel like I almost don't even know where to start with you though, because it's so vast.
I find the best place to start is at the beginning.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And so do you have an omen of the week that you want to share before you leave?
Let's see. An omen
Anything
of
you've
the
been looking
week.
at? No worries if not.
I mean, the major omens, like I can easily give a recap of many of them, but there's huge omens to look out for. The bigger ones, the bigger changes that we see are things that are happening in the sky,
Mm-hmm.
specifically with what we call traditionally the luminaries, which are just lights in the sky, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what people want to call them, comets and spaceships and all that. No, if it's a light, it's a light, it's a luminary. Those lights are changing, all of them. They're all acting different,
Yeah.
looking different, and having different effects as time moves forward. And it's moving
Yes.
forward quicker and quicker, like I said. So watching the skies, paying attention to the luminaries, even in the daytime, paying attention to the sun.
The
The
sun's
sun is
whiter.
changing
It
color.
used to be yellow.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going through a color spectrum shift. But see, we shouldn't stop there, or I shouldn't say shouldn't, but it would be wise for us to not just say, hey, used to be yellow, now it's white. What we need to do is figure out what the implication is. What's the next color to come? What's the next thing to happen if it's changing colors? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's good for us to recognize where we are, but we can look at the past to determine the future. So that sun is going to change to another color. It's going to get hotter and hotter. So watching the luminaries, the oceans are a huge one. The oceans are changing color and they're all turning green, and that's biblical, where it talks about the blood red ocean and a third of the oceans and stuff.
Yep.
And last but not least, humans are easy signs to how close we are to the apocalypse. All of the rise in cults around the world, and people losing their minds, and all of the instances of irrational murders and killings, and the world is going psychotic, and they're justifying their psychosis, which to me gives evidence of the season of Satan that we live in. But these are all omens and signs that sound negative and bad, but in reality, the optimist is seeing, I'm glad this is happening because it's going to flip. We're closer and closer to the time where we go back into the golden age or the millennial kingdom or good times. You know what I mean? However you want to see it or describe it. We look at all the evil and all the messed up stuff. We're not of it. We stay away from it, but we're wise and we consider it, and we smile on the inside knowing that their time is short, because it's literally shorter and shorter days the further forward we move in time.
Yes. That's a good note to end on. Thank you. Y'all have a wonderful week. And I have a really cool show coming up on Sunday with a woman by the name of Priscilla, who's coming on here with Amanda Byes. And she is going to talk about her experience in the spiritual world as a mermaid. She was a part of a cult. And so luckily she's been saved. But I think it's going to be an amazing show, so I'm excited for that one. All right, everybody, have a good day. Bye, Jay.